This video was brought to you by NordVPN. Nearly 3 months since voters in the Netherlands delivered a big victory for Geert Wilders' right-wing populist anti-Islam party, attempts at forming a new government are in disarray after a key party pulled out of talks. So where does this leave things? Could Wilders take his party, once on the political fringe, into government and form what might be the country's furthest right government? In this video, we'll answer that question and explain some other possible outcomes, including the possibility of a different centre-left government and the prospect of fresh elections. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell to stay in the loop and be notified when we release new videos. Let's start with a quick recap. The November 2023 elections saw Geert Wilders' PVV surge to first place with 23.5% of the vote and 37 seats in the 150-seat parliament. But the nature of Dutch politics means that coalition governments are the norm, so Wilders entered into coalition negotiations with 3 other parties. These were the centre-right VVD, formerly led by outgoing Prime Minister Mark Rutte, which came in 3rd place with 24 seats, a poor result for the party. Then there's the Centre to Centre-Right New Social Contract, or NSC, a brand new party led by Pieter Omtzigt, which came 4th with 20 seats, having campaigned on better governance and cleaning up politics. And then, the smallest party in the talks, with 7 seats, is the Populist Farmer Citizen Movement, or BBB. Now, the Dutch House of Representatives eventually appointed Ronald Plasterk, a former Labour Party minister, as informateur, the person effectively overseeing the multi-party negotiations. But just this week, after 8 weeks of negotiations, NSC leader Pieter Omtzigt dropped a bombshell and announced that his party was stepping away from talks and leaving Geert Wilders' government formation in doubt. Omtzigt's justification for pulling out was that he'd seen worrying information on the state of government finances. He said, "Financial expectations for the coming years have changed. Under no conditions do we want to make promises we know are empty." Now, there may well be other reasons that contributed to Omtzigt pulling out. For example, his NSC party has always been a little uncomfortable with the thought of going into government with the PVV due to Wilders' past calls to ban mosques and the Quran, something that Omtzigt said is unconstitutional. But whatever the precise reasons, other party leaders involved in negotiations were not happy, especially because it seemed to take them by surprise. Wilders said, "I don't understand it at all," adding that Omtzigt's move was incredibly disappointing. Meanwhile, BBB leader Carolina van der Plas called it a total surprise, something echoed by the VVD's leader. Even the informateur said that he was a bit surprised when he found out via WhatsApp. So, what is going to happen next? Well, this is clearly a major setback for Wilders' efforts to form a government, but the outcome of this isn't certain. In the immediate term, Plasterk met with the remaining potential coalition partners on Wednesday, and is due to submit a report to Parliament on the status of the negotiations and possible ways forward. That progress report will then be debated by the House of Representatives next week before they decide on a next step. So, where might things go from here? Well, the way we see it, there are basically 3 possible routes forward. The first is the continuation of negotiations to form a right-wing government, but a minority one. The second is the start of fresh negotiations to form a government led by the centre-left Labour-Green alliance. And the third is snap elections, which could happen if either of the previous possibilities fail. So let's go through each of these possibilities one by one. It seems likely that the PVV, VVD and BBB will continue to negotiate with the goal of forming a minority government that would rely on the parliamentary support of the NSC. After all, Pieter Omtzigt raised the possibility of this, saying that his NSC party will continue to work constructively but carefully to form a government that effectively tackles this country's urgent problems. This can be done, for example, by providing constructive support to a minority cabinet or a broad extra-parliamentary cabinet. Wilders has also previously said that a minority cabinet is an option, and there's also precedent for such a setup. Mark Rutte's first government, formed in 2010, was a minority one that relied on parliamentary support from Wilders' PVV. While this might seem like the simplest choice, forming a right-wing minority government without the NSC will still be quite a challenge, as there are many issues to resolve between the remaining parties. For example, it was just last month that Wilders tweeted, "We have a serious problem," after VVD senators voted in favour of a refugee accommodation law that Wilders' PVV was staunchly against. And even if the PVV, VVD and BBB can manage to reach an agreement on policy, choosing ministers and distributing cabinet roles will be an entirely different challenge, especially as two of the three parties involved don't have a pool of experienced politicians to choose from. Going forward, the long-term survivability of a Wilders-led minority government might not be great either, given the tensions inside the potential coalition, as well as with the party which it would rely on for parliamentary votes. Anyway, that was the first and potentially most likely outcome. But an alternative outcome is an attempt to form a coalition led by the centre-left Labour-Green alliance, who came second in the election. A coalition that would lead Wilders' PVV in opposition. That's because you could theoretically form a majority comprising of the Labour-Green alliance, VVD, NSC, BBB and D66, a Liberal party, who together have 85 seats out of 150. The problem with this is that coalition talks would also prove very difficult, as these parties are a real jumbled mix of political ideologies. The VVD and Labour-Green alliance, for example, have expressed no intention of working together. If attempts to form such a government do occur, then it'll probably only happen after all efforts to form a right-wing-led government are fully exhausted. If all else fails then, the Netherlands may be headed towards another election, which for now does seem to be an unlikely option. It's worth pointing out that the Netherlands has never had to hold another election due to the failure of coalition talks. Every election has always resulted in a government being formed, even if, as in 2021 and 2022, it took 299 days. If it did come to a snap election, it seems that only really Geert Wilders' PVV would benefit. Since winning the election in November, his party has shot up in the polls from 24% on election day to 32% today, according to Politico's poll of polls, with most of this coming at the expense of the VVD, who have fallen even further out of favour, dropping from 15 to around 9%, a historic low. An election campaign would be unpredictable and unpleasant, as parties would likely trade accusations of blame for the failure of coalition negotiations. So, as things stand, Geert Wilders' hopes of forming the next Dutch government have hit a major stumbling block. But efforts are far from over, and we'll have to wait and see the Informateur's upcoming progress report before we know where negotiations go from here. For now, Mark Rutte, who announced his intention to retire from politics 7 months ago, will have to stay on as caretaker Prime Minister until a new government is formed. Geopolitics and national security issues definitely seem to be getting more difficult right now, as we regularly cover in our videos. But when it comes to your personal security, that's never been easier, thanks to our sponsor, NordVPN. That's because NordVPN offers you one-click protection, with their threat protection service shielding you from malware, trackers, and ads, especially when you're on dodgy public Wi-Fi networks. Not only that, but their dark web monitoring service actively notifies you if someone leaks your credentials, helping you stay one step ahead. All this protection doesn't have to come at the expense of great connection though, with NordVPN offering the very fastest service of any VPN, allowing you to connect almost instantly anywhere in the world. Throw in their 24/7 customer service, dedicated apps on all major platforms, one account protecting 6 devices, and 30-day money-back guarantee. It's hard to come up with any reasons not to sign up. Plus, if you sign up for a 2-year plan using our link, you not only get a massive discount, you also get 4 extra months totally free. So if you want to sign up for NordVPN and also help improve our journalism, then make sure you click our link in the description. That way you'll get their great service for a discount and let them know that you came through us. Thank you.